And that leads me into my very special guest. It is none other than Ange and the wonderful Gabe. Good morning.
Hi.
Hi. Gabe. Hi. I can't believe you're up, Gabe. What time do you guys all get up in the hood?
Well, Gabe's usually up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. But you're usually the first up. And I'm probably, of our family of 5, somewhere about the 3rd or 4th.
So wonderful. So wonderful. Thanks for joining us today. And I'm really honoured to have you here. I could probably talk to you, reading about your bio, about many things about your life. I didn't know you were a journo. You're wordsmitherer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a good one too. So good.
Yeah.
The chat line's going off already. Lots of hearts and emojis and things. I don't know if you can see them, but we've got so much love for you guys. Hey, today's World's Down Syndrome Day. What do you think when it comes up to these days? I'm sure people might check in with you more often, or maybe there's a bit of natter in your life a bit more around this day, or people want to know what they should do, or you become a bit of a, a topic. But I'm hopeful that it's helpful and not a draining thing. But what's it like for your household around days like this?
No, it's actually pretty good. It's mostly like any other day, but it's also a wonderful day in the sense that it reminds me of all the really good things about Down syndrome and having Gabe in our life, and I think that it creates more awareness and even acceptance. So that's a wonderful thing.
Are you still discovering things about Gabe, and not just Gabe in particular, but I mean, we're always discovering our children as they grow up and ourselves as we grow up, but in particular about Down syndrome? Are there still things that are evolving and that you're learning as a mother?
Yeah, well, it's more like when a child goes through a different stage of life. So for Gabe is well and truly a teenager, and we get all the grumpiness with that, and but all the wonderful things too, because with that, Gabe's more vocal about what he does and doesn't want to do, and I think with different stages and what I'm sometimes reminded about with Down syndrome is that being reminded about the differences that might come with having Down syndrome compared to a typical child. And sometimes I just have to take that into consideration, but mostly it's all a good thing. And I think having Gabe now for 14 years, still waking up, you're a lot of the big lessons around what he has taught me sort of happened in the early years, and they were things around really being confronted with what does having Gabe mean? What does having a child with a disability mean? What does Down syndrome mean? What's and even being having things revealed about myself that were a bit confronting as well. Just for instance, things that I realised that I valued superficial things like intelligence or beauty, and when I'd always thought, everybody's the same, and we value each person for who they are, but that was quite confronting when it was your own child you're with. But they've actually been the most wonderful lessons of all, because with that, it teaches you grace and humility, and I think cliche, but it actually makes you a better person for it. So
when you realised you were having Gabe in all his beauty, and what
beauty
kind of look at him, mate, he's the best. I said this on air before you got on. Like, one of the highlights of going to church on Sundays is if Gabe's there, because I am guaranteed an almighty hug, and on the run, I've got to prepare that I might get tackled to the ground because he's getting bigger.
That's right.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it. So I do mean a beauty. It's a joy.
Yeah.
Research material. Does it go into overdrive? What was that experience like for you and Joel? And listening to the hoopla of you should or you could or this is the medical things or just feel it, and it would be probably really intense. How did you navigate through that?
Yeah, it was probably one of the most challenging. Yeah, it was. I would say one of the most challenging times of my life, our life, particularly because we hadn't met Gabe yet, and I'm talking. You can have a chance in a second.
Oh, yes. You've been told, Gabe. You've been told, Gabe.
Look, this was
I don't know.
Yes, you do. That was 14 years ago, and that things have changed a lot even since then as well. But it was particularly challenging because we knew that Gabe had Down syndrome before he was born. And look, I've just got to say, it's a very individual choice. I would never want to tell somebody what they should or shouldn't do in that situation because it is incredibly difficult. For us, there wasn't a choice, and that was probably good knowing that already. And look, at our experience was that.
This is not distracting at all, by the way.
Out.
This is not distracting at all.
Get it out. Go on.
We've all had cats before. It's just a furball.
Okay.
It's a furball. He's a cat. He's a furball cat today.
All right. So then you have to listen to Mummy, okay?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. And then then you can talk, all right? Sorry, Troy. I feel like I'm talking around in circles here. But
okay.
I think let me just go back a second. Yes, it was incredibly difficult because you're given all of this information, all of the medicalised information about, your child has this percentage of having this or that, or even down to potentially the risks that your child, should they live to adulthood, will die of this. So knowing all that information before you'd actually met your child was incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
I've got to say that we had a wonderful medical team around us, although they were always very respectful of us and our situation and what we had decided. I think for us it was more the lack of positive information, because alongside all of the so-called medical risks and challenges associated with Down syndrome, we are also in a period where there's fantastic medication, there's fantastic therapies, there's fantastic surgeries for children with Down syndrome, there's early intervention, there's really good integration. Mostly, there's still challenges around that in schools for children, and whether it's in a mainstream setting or in a special school setting, there are really great choices out there. So I wished that alongside all of the medical information, which was our the doctors and medical teams, that was that they were doing their job and letting us know that was the right thing to do. But to balance that with, well, here are the positives, and actually, yes, of course, there will be challenges like any child, but there's actually a very, very wonderful side to it all as well. So
you talked about integration. How sharp is that confrontation when you all of a sudden are walking a world with someone that does require some different things to cater, accessibility, inclusiveness? We talk about those things quite often in today's commentary. Did it start at quite an early age? with Gabe, or is it more kind of when he's starting to develop his own freedom in his body, and he's like, far out, this space is not good for you. This is crazy. I need to get this changed.
Well, unconsciously, as a mother or as a parent, it starts from if it starts from either before birth, if you know that your child has Down syndrome, or after birth, and from that day one, basically, because look, I've never had one person that has been outwardly rude or mean towards me or Gabe. Mostly everybody is so just really well intentioned, but often I noticed, particularly when Gabe was born, it's just often questions come out of ignorance, and they can be worded the wrong way, and to the parent it can be really hard to deal with, but mostly I was able to quickly put that in perspective and see that people are really well intentioned, and they just want to understand and because they care, which is great, but I think unconsciously it started really early on. You don't necessarily see yourself as an we're all advocates for our children, but in your head, making that conscious decision of, okay, now I'm an advocate as well, for not only for my child, but for Down syndrome as well. So Gabe's just falling asleep.
A few stages going on this morning over the next 5 minutes with Gabe. So good.
Exactly.
So good.
So does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. It's wonderful. Gabe, what's happening this morning? Can you hear me, Gabe? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up. Can you see me? Are you getting sleepy? What's on today for Gabe?
What have you got on, buddy? School.
School.
Are you off to school? Do you hang out with Auntie Jane?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be the best.
Yeah.
Do you hang out with Oscar?
Yeah.
Oscar says hello. He's watching you right now. Can you believe that? He's watching you.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you. He's watching you. I haven't read the book. I'm glad there's a sample on the website that I only saw 5 minutes ago, so I'll have a read of that. Great. Who's that on the front? Gabe, who's that on the front? Who's on the front of that book?
Your friend?
Ozzy, looking sharp in his denim jacket that Josh kept from the 70s. That is great.
And Troy, I don't know if you're aware of our story, but three sets of families, we all had our boys 6 months apart of each other. So my dear friend Caz, we did the Now I See book together. She had Clem, her boy, 6 months before we had Gabe, and then Josh and Sarah, our other friends, had Oscar 6 months after us. And at the time, we were like, "What is this?" Because the odds of this are really rare.
Yes.
Around the time, there was something like up to 80 children born a year in Victoria with Down syndrome.
Wow.
And so in the space of 18 months, three close families had our boys. But the most wonderful, wonderful blessing of all, because it solidified our friendship even more.
That's brilliant.
And we, have our boys, and it's pretty wonderful. And Caz and I wouldn't have done the book together, obviously, otherwise. So
sure.
Yeah.
Caz just said that she's listening, she's watching and loving it right now. So a big shout out to Caz, who's watching and listening right now. And I wish I could fit two people in one screen, but as you can see, it's quite difficult. So it's my poor editing and preparing. So sorry, Caz, but thanks for joining. There's a question on the line, and Stacey Piper, another listener, says hello to both of you too this morning. Tell us about gathering stories for the book. That's from Jane. I think she might know some info about this, but what was it like gathering stories? And we've spoken. Go on.
Sorry, Troy. No, it was actually a really wonderful experience because this was Caz and I put through the Down Syndrome Associations, and I think Caz set up a website, and we did it that way. And very quickly, we put out a call all around Australia and New Zealand, and very quickly we had the 50 stories for the book, and 50 was a nice round number.
Sure.
So then our boys were still pretty small at that stage, so it was fitting in doing the book in between looking after children and okay. Now you're really
Warming up.
there we go. Just
You've got the most provocative smile, Gabe. From one rascal to another.
You might call it that.
Let's get up to mischief today. Let's get up to mischief.
So look, we had really good support with the contributors, and wonderful support too with the fundraising. Caz's auntie and her mum and a group of people were really instrumental in helping us to fundraise for it, and so we were able to raise enough money to print the book, set up a website, and the whole idea was that it was a resource that parents of newborn children with Down syndrome could read and see a different side as well. And look, with the book, we were really conscious of not sugarcoating the stories. Like, there's no doubt, like with any child, and I think particularly when you're faced with a diagnosis, it's not easy. So we were conscious of not sugarcoating things as such, but also to point out, well, these are the ways that our children have enriched our lives. So, so that's given through the, for instance, Down Syndrome associations have copies that they give to new parents.
Wow.
Of children with Down syndrome. And
so was it a glaring issue that it was under-resourced, for, even though you said you had quite a close network of friends that amazingly had children with Down syndrome at the same time? Beyond that and the resources that were around through medical people and stuff, there was still, you think, personal experiences weren't getting shared that would have been really helpful for you back then?
Definitely. And at the time there was a couple of books that had been published in America that Caz and I had both read, and but nothing in Australia at the time. And so that's where we really felt that there was a need to hear more local stories as such. And you mentioned that I was a journalist. To me, to be able to put this book together and use my skills that way, I think has just been one of the highlights of my life. And to see it make a difference to people's lives, particularly when they're probably not feeling that great about the situation and what lies ahead is it's a huge privilege.
You talked about integration before, which is an interesting topic. I had to wind back the clock in my days at school, and we had a wonderful student, which I only wish I was 40 years old at the time when we had a student around, and you probably, Christy Field was at our class, and we had no idea as kids. You've got Covenant's you've obviously got Jane there, bodyguard.
I'm getting pushed off the chair.
But it's great to see schools put these kind of dedicated staff into place, which certainly wasn't around growing up. But it ties in with a question that's just come up as well. How can schools improve their educational support for families, though, with a focus on life after school, in particular employment and life independence? Great question for you, things.
Yeah. And it is a really good question. I don't think it's a simple answer. I think it takes a village, and I think perhaps starting to listen to parents of children with Down syndrome more about their hopes and wants for their children, more advocacy, perhaps
So good, so
with
good, so good.
in schools around how they can better teach and children, with the basics of education, but also setting themselves up for life after school. I know there's a lot being done in that space. I know the what's on offer for people with Down syndrome, is quite patchy. But I think it's not something
Patchy.
patchy. I think it's not something that can necessarily be sorted out overnight, but I think the wheels are in motion to advance the situation a lot more than it was even 5 or 10 years ago. Sorry, I hope that's not talking around in generalised.
You're not at all. You're very. You're
I
underselling it.
think, do you want to say something? Yeah.
A question about the name Down syndrome. When we're looking at language, is there talk of not calling it that?
I haven't heard that talk, but it's often to do with the way that it's referred to. I guess around disability, you should usually talk about the person first. So it's basically person first language, I think is the term. So Gabe is a person with Down syndrome, not a Down syndrome person or a Downsy. I've heard that one a few times.
Oh yeah.
The actual medical term is trisomy 21, which refers to the third 21st chromosome that people with Down syndrome have. So as a parent as well, that's something that I've you have to talk carefully and sensitively with people when you're hoping that your son will be referred to, your son or your child will be referred to in the right way.
There you go. I've got Carolyn here. It's named after Doctor Who discovered it, John Langdon Down.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Well, that adds a bit of context. I really mean it more so in, and thanks for clarifying person first. I'm going to play a clip after we finish today about person first language because it could be really helpful. It's easy to get the words in the wrong spot. It's a subtle change, but it's great. But yeah, no, the word down. I just feel it could be in the category of maybe that's the start of people not thinking about it greatly because of something in the name. Anyway, I know it's maybe
I
a
really
small
wish
tweak, but
John Langdon Down could have been called John Langdon Up or John Langdon Wonderful or something like that. It's
sure,
the whole word down has some not great connotations, but it is what it is. So, and look, mostly Gabe is Gabe to us. The really good thing is that to mostly Gabe is mostly like other children, mostly.
Yeah.
And we just think about him as Gabe rather than a child with Down syndrome or a person with Down syndrome. So.
I really loved what you said about, what could, in response to the question about getting education and support, was listening. Yes. You are, spot on with going to the source, getting advocates in there, but not just advocates, but Jane's question. Gabe, are you meant to be going to school? What time are you going to school?
2:30.
2:30 in the afternoon.
That's the dentist.
That's the dentist time. That's when you're getting your teeth checked.
Why don't you go up to Nanny?
No.
Okay.
No.
Gabe, what are you doing? You going? I saw you doing your hair before. What things do you have to do before you go to school? Have you brushed your teeth?
No.
What?
No.
Do you brush your teeth? Oh, you're off to do it
No.
now.
No.
Where are you going?
He does wash his teeth. So
No, it's really good. I think it's a home hitter with talking about when we talk about First Nations, but how do we learn? Well, I would wonder whether or not people have many Aboriginal people in their life. I think it's a similar thing for me telling myself how many people in my life do I know and talk to and hang out with ongoingly, investingly, with parents that have children with Down syndrome. And it's not, and that's as much as you know. Is getting in there, reading books and watching these interviews and stuff is helpful, but it's just a scratch, isn't it? It really isn't what it's all about.
Yeah. Well, as I said, mostly, as I said, people have the very best of intentions, and I welcome questions, and because how do we learn about each other if we don't ask questions or we don't invest the time to find out about things? So,
another great question from the same person, because it involves more than 3 words, which is always Fizz. He gets into it. He gets right into it, which we love. He asked, does the profile of Stevie Payne, do you know Stevie Payne?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And Sam Morefoot, the trainer at the Geelong Football Club, who probably Carolyn might know. Does their profiles help families with Down syndrome children see a pathway for life achievements? And how important, if it is important, is that media profile?
Oh, I think it's very important because when you're seeing examples of people with Down syndrome doing great things in the community, it's only encouraging. And I think, but having said that, all children with Down syndrome are different.
Yes.
So, a particular path of one person with Down syndrome might not be another person's path. But I think that the more examples of people with Down syndrome doing really wonderful things in the community, it's no doubt it's an encouragement, and it makes you realise as a parent on a personal level what's possible.
I love it. Great questions, Fizz. Thanks for doing that. And we've got high listeners at the moment. I need to have more guests like you on. It's been really, really helpful and so important that Gabe was involved, because it would have been, I think it's a bit weird talking about
For all his
someone
craziness.
when they're in the room. Thanks heaps, Ange. Is there anything that we can do, or how do we get a hold of the book? Are books still online ordering, or are they in bookstores?
Yeah, they are.
I can put the link up.
We've got a website which we've just actually had. Sorry, I'm just looking at the which we've just had. Caz and I have just had updated, and it's called Now I See Project.
I'll put the link up right now.
Yeah,
it's in the chat
and
right now.
I just maybe want to say one last thing, if that's okay.
Of course.
Troy. Gabe and all his wonderfulness. I think I said a few minutes ago about it takes a village. Gabe wouldn't be, well, I'm sure he would still be wonderful, but he wouldn't be anywhere near as wonderful without his fantastic support team at his school, Covenant College, and his auntie Jane is a big part of that, and the wonderful Mel Billman and Jodie Ward, and Gabe has fantastic therapists and family support and friendship supports, and it's not I think hopefully Joel and I have had a big hand in Gabe's growth and development, but I most days I'm just continually reminded of the value of having that village, that community of people that care for our children with Down syndrome, and the huge part that many people have, not just parents. And I think World Down Syndrome Day is important for that recognition as well, not only for people with Down syndrome, but all the great people in their lives too.
So good. So good. I love it. Where's Gabe doing? What's he doing right now? I wish I was hanging out with him.
He's probably giving somebody else a hard time downstairs.
He's an incredible human. He's spot on. What a joy he is in this world. What a joy.
Yeah, mostly I can say incredible. Sometimes You
I
know,
bet.
I don't.
14-year-old boys, eh?
That's the parents and the child's journey, right?
That's so good. Thanks for joining us this morning, Ange. I'll let you continue on getting on with your life. But, you know, thanks for joining us in such a... Yeah, it's an important part of the morning. You should be at home catering for your family, but we've stolen half an hour out of your life. But we really appreciate it. And there's some comments.
And I've only had one coffee, so, you know, I better go and have another one.
Go get the second. What about your mum? Where's your mum?
Downstairs.
Oh, too far away. I wish she was lurking because I would lure her
The
in.
lovely Nan, who does heaps as well.
It's so good. It's so good. There's some comments on there. Thanks so much for sharing your journey with us today, Ange. It's been really helpful. And
Pleasure.
on World Down Syndrome Day, this is really great. Thanks for joining us.
Yep. No worries. So that's me.
That's you. You can
right.
go have some coffee and breakfast. But wonderful. Great
Thanks,
chatting.
Troy.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
No worries.
Right. Bye.